Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our core plays for this week's AT&T Byron Nelson. We've had a few withdrawals, so it's a good thing I waited to make this preview because Jordan Spieth was very likely to be one of those core plays. So a lot has changed. There's a little bit of a different dynamic up top with some of the pricing now. Quite a large gap between somebody like Scotty and then Tyrrell Hatton as your second priced player. So we'll be touching on the top end of the pricing board on DraftKings and 4 of the players that I have my eye on for some of these large field GPPs and that I will be using as foundational pieces of my player pool. So by the end, you'll have an idea of some of my higher exposure plays this weekend and, of course, 4 players that have also already bet outright. So without further ado, a lot to touch on. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. As we typically do with these videos, let's take a look at our key stats to get an idea of the kind of metrics I'm using to identify our top plays. So at the top, we've got shots gained approach, but I'll point out here that the mid to long iron range is a lot more important at the TPC Craig Ranch than it would be at pretty much any other tour track. We've got 6% weighting on that 175 to 200 yard range, at 150 to 175, and then those 200 plus yard buckets, a lot more important this week than most. And you can see that 200 to 225 yard range is extremely important, about twice to sometimes even 3 times more important this week than what you would see for most golf tournaments. A lot of that is because of the par 3s. Almost all of them are in that range. All of them but one lie in that 200 to 225 yard bucket. A lot of those par 5 shots, and then you have a bunch of 475 to 525 yard par 4s, which isn't a bucket, but the upper end of those 400s, the low 500s, 500 yard par 4s, that you're going to have to hit those shots as well. So whether you're a long player, whether you're somebody that's a little bit shorter off the tee, you're going to have to hit out of that bucket. So we're looking at that. Shots gained putting, we have bent grass greens. So taking a look at that, some of your recent form, but looking at birdie or better percentage, par 5 scoring. It's a par 71 this time around, so there's only 3 par 5s compared to the 4 that you had in 2021 and 2022 for this event. But this year, only 3, but still important. A lot of your low scores were people that took advantage of the par 5s last year. And in general, the guys that take advantage of par 5s are also some of the better long iron players on tour. So you're getting a little bit of side correlation there too. We're looking at around the green stats. You've got Bermuda grass rough, so that's the surface you want to look for that. Shots gained at easy conditions, and then looking at that par 4 bucket from 450 to 500 yards that I mentioned would be extremely prevalent earlier on. In terms of comps, we've got TPC Twin Cities, Deer Run, Detroit Golf Club, also TPC Summerlin. All of these tracks have bent grass greens. They also all relatively long. I wouldn't say they're all bombers golf courses. This certainly isn't a bombers golf course, but on the longer end of the spectrum where you're going to see some long iron shots into relatively tough targets. So with that being said, right, main things we're looking at, long iron play, putting on bent grass, and then aggressive players, right? Guys that have a high birdie percentage, that are good at taking advantage of the par 5s. Those are the kind of guys that we're looking for. And up top, Tyrrell Hatton doesn't really fit that description, right? He kind of has a knack, especially of late, at least over the last 2 to 3 months, of taking apart difficult and really tough fields, right? I'm talking API, right? Even last week at Quail Hollow, right? A difficult ball striking kind of test. So now that we're at a quote unquote birdie fest, right, where you're going to see a winning score likely better than 20 under. And with the soft conditions this year, it's worth noting there's going to be a ton of rain in the area both before and during play this week. You could very well see a low winning score here over here in Dallas, but Tyrrell Hatton might just be the best player in the field as well. So we'll take a look at the recent shots gained metrics, which are just through the roof, gaining over half a stroke per round off the tee, over a stroke per round with his approach play, and the short game is as stout as always. That all adds up to 2.3 shots gained per round, which isn't quite on the Scotty Scheffler level where he's gaining nearly 3 strokes per round. But given the price tag, I mean, he's clearly the second best guy in the field, right? Scotty Scheffler on a tier of his own, but now that somebody like Jordan Spieth isn't even in the pricing, right? He's not even in the field anymore. I think there's a clear number 2 in Tyrrell Hatton. And what I like here is that people are running with that narrative, right? All you're going to hear this week, you're going to hear people fading Tyrrell Hatton. And it's going to be all because he doesn't play well at Birdie Fest. Well, maybe on the PGA Tour for the last 2 or 3 months, he's had some of his better performances, but if you look at his European Tour results, he has wins at 2 really easy tracks. He eclipsed 20 under par in his win in Abu Dhabi. He also won over there at the Alfred Dunhill Links Pro-Am, where he also won well past 20 under par. So he's shown that knack in the past. While it hasn't happened recently on the PGA Tour, he saves a lot of his starts for the top end fields, which happen to be in tough fields, a lot of times at really difficult golf courses. And you usually don't see him in the AT&T Byron Nelson kind of field. So now that we're getting him in this situation, I think it's a time to buy in. I really think he could win this golf tournament. I think the price tag's fair enough at $10,100. And the icing on the cake is if people run with that narrative that he can't win at an easy track, I think you're looking at a moderately owned Tyrrell Hatton. I mean, even with the Spieth withdrawal, no doubt a lot of that ownership, which was probably going to be 20% plus, probably even like 25 to 30% for Jordan Spieth, is going to go to a Scottie Scheffler. A lot of it's going to go down to a Hatton, a Decky. This upper end of the 9K range is going to get peppered as well. But Tyrrell Hatton, because of that narrative, might not get quite as large a share as some of the other guys around him. And if that's the case, might be, like I said, moderately owned. Like, I don't think he's going to be low owned by any means. People are going to see the form. They're going to understand that he, even if he's not the best quote unquote course fit, that he could still get the job done here. But he's not going to be mega chalk, right? He's not going to be Scottie Scheffler in terms of ownership, who we're going to have to talk about on Wednesday. And there's a reason why I kept him out of the core plays. Everyone knows to play him. He's from the area, playing the best golf of anybody in this field, clearly. Probably the best golf of anybody in the world, not named Jon Rahm, and is only $11,900, which is the most expensive player in this field, but he could easily be 13 grand. We don't have to talk about why you want to play Scottie Scheffler, but Tyrrell Hatton, I just want to bring him up here because you will hear people that dismiss him because of his quote-unquote skill set. And given just how well he's playing, again, gaining 2.3 strokes per round with the shots gained, it might not matter. He might go out there, gain 15 strokes to the field, and beat this weaker than average sort of field. So the event history is non-existent, has not played here, but the recent form, you're not going to find a hotter player on tour. Just before this stretch here, right down in Florida, couple top-end finishes at elevated fields, nearly won the Players, nearly won the API, a couple years in a row, right, was up there in the top 5 of the API. Just exactly what you're looking for in terms of pedigree, and I think is going to be severely overlooked this week. Next up, we've got Siwoo Kim at $9,100, and I'm skipping this top end of the 9K range because a lot of it is going to come down to what I do with Scottie. If I play Scottie, I'm going to have to skip this range in a majority of my lineups because I'm already playing a Tyrrell Hatton there. If I decide to fade Scottie, or if the ownership gets too crazy there on Wednesday, well, then I might be peppering this top end of the 9K range. So as of right now, there's no one that I'm really running to the window to bet. I think their outright numbers are kind of stale at this point. What I want to focus on is maybe a little bit further down the outright betting board and a little bit further down the DraftKings pricing, where we've got Siwoo Kim, who is in ball striking form. And I usually try to avoid a chalky Siwoo Kim, but based on the fact that you got KH Lee priced above him, I've heard Matt Kuchar mentioned a few times. A few people are jumping back on the Seamus power train. I don't think he's going to be mega chalky. Probably should be, because the ball striking has been there. From tee to green, one of the best players. You can see getting close to half a stroke per round, both off the tee and on approach. If we zoom out a little bit, you'll see that it's sustained, right? Still ball striking the heck out of it, just a much better putter. Of late, has not really been sharp in that department, right? Losing close to 3/4 of a stroke per round with the flat stick. But on these greens, you can see only losing 1/3 of a stroke, so not nearly as dog shit as what you see with his long, recent form there over the last 12 rounds. But what I like is that at a course where, off the tee, you can kind of spray it, there's not that much to worry about with Siwoo Kim, right? He's a fiery, dynamic character that can eject from golf tournaments, and it's usually when he gets a little bit awry off the tee. While there's water in play, there is just so much room to miss out there around TPC Craig Ranch that driving accuracy, at least when it comes to avoiding hazards, is not going to be worrisome for Siwoo. So that worry, that ejection that we know can come from somebody like Siwoo is a much lower risk this week. I mean, sure, he could still eject himself with the iron play, but he's not going to do it with penalty shots, which I really like here. So with the risk gone, let's consider the upside. One of the most aggressive players on tour, birdie or better percentage through the roof, somebody that's not afraid to go pin seeking on every single hole. Boat raced the field at the Amex this year, has done it in the past, right? Winning scores well past 20 under par. So we know he has the firepower to win this kind of event, let alone finish in the top 5, top 10. and he's striping it of late. I love all of those things. They all point to just an excellent play this week. Checking a lot of the boxes we're looking for. If you look at the long iron stats, one of the better players in that category on the PGA Tour. Worth noting that Tyrrell Hatton 2 is a plus player when it comes to those long irons. A really just plus player across the board when it comes to his skill set. I mean, there's really not a hole in Tyrrell Hatton's game. Siwoo Kim, right, the off the tee play can be a little bit sporadic. The putter can be a little bit inconsistent. But of late has shown the upside, has shown the ability to go out there, spike off the tee, has spiked with the putter, of course, a few times when he's had those top end finishes. And in this kind of field, if he goes out there, gains with the flat stick, that's at least getting into contention, if not winning this event, because he's going to be up there with like 2, maybe 3 guys on his level there on Sunday. And if he's got that putter working, watch out. He's going to be a tough guy to beat. Next up, we've got Taylor Montgomery. If you're looking for a hot flat stick, look no further. This is the best putter on the PGA Tour. So when we're looking at our key metrics and puttings there at number 2, it's no surprise I'm considering a Taylor Montgomery, especially considering how aggressive a player he is. He's not afraid to go after pins. He can be a little bit inconsistent with the iron play, but with how easy the around the green is here and how stout his around the green play is, when he makes mistakes at this tournament, I don't know if it's going to cost him all that much, right? Kind of like with Siwoo, Montgomery can miss off the tee left and right, but at TPC Craig Ranch, you can manage the water. You can avoid it on almost every hole that you have water. Like, for example, the water will run down one side of the fairway. It's a little creek. To the right, it's usually wide open. There's usually no trees to worry about. You can miss in the rough. Sure, you'll be dealing with the longer cut, but you won't be in the water, right? Somebody like Taylor Montgomery, Siwoo Kim, that helps immensely. Whether it's mentally, whether it's actually just, not running into penalty strokes, he can go out there and score, be aggressive, much like his Siwoo Kim. He gets it done more with the putter than he does the ball striking. I mean, if we look at his recent metrics here, right, losing with the off the tee play and the approach play. The approach play is always going to be his weakness, at least it has been to this point of the season for him. Off the tee, because of the lack of water, or at least, the ability to manage some of the water out there, I expect him to gain a bunch off the tee. He's one of the longer players on tour, especially early in his career, with sometimes gaining close to a stroke per round with the off the tee play. So given how good he is around the green and with the flat stick, he can just, flip the off the tee play. He doesn't even have to flip the approach play. Like, that might always just be slightly below average for Taylor Montgomery. You're looking at a top 5, top 10 for him. I mean, he showed that consistency early in the year, right? It was like almost always finishing top 10, at the very worst, like top 20. Has fallen off since then, but I think he's going to get back to that form sooner rather than later. And this is the exact kind of golf course where we could see that happen. And the last play we'll touch on here has not been in the best form of late, but has at least shown the upside, right? Minwoo Lee, over there at the Players Championship, was in contention, nearly won that golf tournament. Has had a few missed cuts since, so that's why the price tag has gone down. It's also why I think the ownership isn't going to be crazy on Minwoo Lee, even at $8,400. So a couple missed cuts there. Let's see. That was the Heritage and the Masters, of course, a major championship. The Heritage, not really a good course fit for him at all. And the reason why I say that is he's not accurate off the tee, right? Like, he is the longest player in this field. He's longer than Scottie Scheffler. I could tell you that for a fact, because Minwoo Lee's longer than Rory McIlroy. He's quite literally probably the longest pound for pound player on all the PGA Tour. And at a course where you don't have to worry about missing left and right off the tee, he's just going to wail away at the driver, right? A few strategic holes, he might take 3-wood out there because he won't need a driver, but he can lead into the approach play, which with his long irons, small sample size, have been excellent to this point. Really showed that off at the Players Championship. A lot of those longer holes he was able to take advantage of. And then the elite off the tee play with that distance, he can drive some of these drivable par 4s. So if people are looking at that recent form, right, the modeling doesn't love him here because of that. They're probably not going to play Minwoo Lee. But if you look at the long-term upside, the DP World Tour, just ridiculous stretch that he was on where he was finishing top 10 literally every single week. This guy is just a better player than the guys around him, and I think it's a really good course fit. An aggressive player off the tee that kind of doesn't have to worry about his biggest weakness, right? The fact that he can miss real wildly off the tee. So I like his chances here. I like the bent grass putting numbers too. Again, small sample size because we haven't seen him all that often over here, but still a gainer on bent grass. And a player that long-term, right, if we zoom out a little bit on Minwoo Lee, right, you can see the stats aren't all that great on him because we just haven't seen him all that often. So, hopefully some of those model nerds, the guys that are just only considering the metrics, won't consider Minwoo Lee because the eye test is jarring for Minwoo. You can tell that he's one of the most talented players, talented ball strikers we have in the world, let alone in this kind of field. And the upside, especially from some of the DP World Tour finishes, is easily top 10 or even a win at this kind of golf tournament. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the core plays this week. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button, but also comment down below who you've got winning this week. Let's keep it outside of Scotty Scheffler. Let's go anybody but Scotty, who you've got winning. I'm going to go ahead, let's take Minwoo Lee. Let's really go down the board. I like his outright number, and he's got the upside. He can pop with the flat stick. We saw that at the Players. The approach play is elite level stuff even this early in his career. And off the tee, if he keeps the ball even just remotely on the yard, he's going to gain 4 or 5 strokes to the field. So I think he's got an avenue there. It's a small avenue. It's a little bit less likely than, let's say, a Scotty Scheffler went in, but would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And until next time, best of luck with those outright bets, any DFS lineups that you guys decide to enter, unless, of course, you're playing in the GPP that I'm in, and then in that case, worst of luck to you guys. I've got GPPs that I've got to take down, but we'll have content dropping throughout the week. We'll have value plays. We'll have DFS fades and sleepers drop in at some point. And of course, our weekly live stream, it'll be Wednesday at 7 p.m. So bring any questions you've got there. We'll go through the weather, chalk, prop stuff, all of your questions, like I said, and make sure we're ready to rock and roll there on Thursday and hopefully take down a contest this weekend. Like I said, best of luck unless you're in the contest that I'm playing in. Those are reserved for me this week. So until next time, guys, like I said, best of luck, and catch you guys on the flip side.